friends, I am so excited that you are here joining me today for Sweet Pea Paper's Crafty Christmas in July 24. This is a fun collaboration. It goes all month long and it is sure to give you plenty of Christmas inspiration. What I want to share with you today is a time card flip that I created, and it could be used as a mini scrapbook or really anything, honestly, a little journaling pad for your holidays. I had so much fun making this. I used 3 time cards and then I cut 3 more sheets of paper to match the size and attached it to the back and used fabric for the hinges. So I'm going to show you how I made this, but before we get into all the close-ups and goodness of this, I want to share with you real quick that this is a month-long collaboration. You can join in if you'd like to. Use the hashtag Crafty Christmas in July 24 and check out my description box for all of the collaborators. Check them out. They're going to have so many beautiful things to share with you. And I want to give a shout out to the designers in the collaboration. Very generous of them to do that. On my time card flip, I used my digital kit, Vintage Christmas. And I chose to use mine because I never have time to use my own digital kits. So that's why I chose to use that this year, but definitely a shout out and a thank you to all the wonderful designers that contributed for us to use their kits. Okay, so check out my description box for all of the information that you need to know about this collaboration. Come along with me, check out the close-ups of this, and then I'm going to share with you how I put it together. This is from beginning to end of how I put it together. So if you follow along, you can complete one of these yourself. You don't have to use time cards. You could use anything like envelopes, you know, tall skinny envelopes. You could use those if you wanted to. So much fun to make this. I loved it. I had 3 time cards in my stash and I decided I wanted to go ahead and make something with them. And they, you know, they're the shape of one of those, what do we call those, slimline journals. So I thought they'd be kind of fun to play with. I took my digital kit, which is my Vintage Christmas digital kit, and I printed that out on heavy duty cardstock. And I went ahead and marked one of the pages of it to the size of the time card, and I'm cutting pieces so that we have a front and a back to the time card. And we have to have 2 pieces for each, because when we put this together as an accordion flip, we have to put fabric in between the 2 pieces of paper. So that's why you need to have 2 pieces. You could do it and just have exposed fabric, but I like the fabric to be sandwiched in between the paper. So that's all I'm doing right now, is cutting the digital kit papers to size. This accordion flip is going to be 3 pages, but I want to let you know that if you make one, you can make it as many pages as you want. I have my papers cut to size. They match the size of the time card. And now I'm ready to get the fabric that I'm going to use and create the hinges. I do make a mistake on the second one, and I'll show you that. But the first one goes very smoothly, nice and easy. Now, I tear my fabric typically if it's the type that will tear, because you always get a nice straight cut because it tears along the grain of the fabric. If I were to cut it with my scissors, chances are I'm not going to go very straight. So that's why you see me tearing it. And that's really the only reason, because that way I know it's nice and straight. So I am going to tear just 2 pieces because I only need 2 hinges. Now, if I was going to have more than 3 pages, I would obviously need more. I'm pulling away the loose fibers. I'm going to get rid of those. And then I'm going to check the height. I do believe that these are a little bit too long. So I'm going to match them up to the time cards. And then I will snip whatever it is that I need to snip off the top or the bottom. I am using Fabri-Tac to adhere the fabric to the paper. However, just so that you know, if you wanted to, you could hot glue it.
or you could sew it. Once I have the fabric glued down, now I am adding more to the other side of the fabric, here the exposed piece, and then also the paper, because once I'm done adding the adhesive, I'm going to go ahead and add the card on top. So I've got the card, and then the fabric is sandwiched between the time card and the digital kit paper. Now I am adding the second piece. So I put some glue on the fabric, and now I have adhered the card to it. And now I'm going to take the digital kit piece and I'm going to add that over top. This is where I made my mistake. I added this piece here, the second piece of paper, too soon. What I needed to do, and I realized it just now, was I needed to go ahead and add the other piece of fabric. So I opened it up a little bit, enough to get some more Fabri-Tac in there, and now I'm sliding my fabric in between the two pieces of paper. So on your center pieces, don't put your papers together until you have fabric on both sides, because you need that hinge. And just to be sure everything sticks really nicely, I added a bit of hot glue. Now it's time to add the third time card and also the third piece of digital kit paper. And you'll notice that I did like sort of the opposite. So on this side I have DigiKit, time card, DigiKit, and then on the opposite side I have time card, DigiKit, time card. Now we're getting that third time card in place. You'll notice that I do use a spatula to press the paper down. I either use this spatula or sometimes I use my scissors, the handle of my scissors, and it just spreads the glue around so everything ends up setting really flat. So on the first one on the left, I'm going to go ahead and add a belly band. And I got this piece, it was just like a leftover scrap piece from when I cut the DigiKit to size. So I figured it's the perfect size, I'll go ahead and use it as a belly band. This is another piece of the kit, and I'm going to cut this in order to make a pocket. I'm using a ruler and a scoring tool so that I don't have to write on the paper, but it marks it enough so that I can see it, so I can use my trimmer to go ahead and cut it. I'm going around it with some red ink before I glue it down to the time card. Once I have this glued down into place, I'm going to add a horizontal belly band to this middle piece, and I have some scrap here. So I'm just going to cut a little piece off that I can use as the belly band. And then on the bottom of the same page, I'm going to go ahead and add a tab so that whatever I put in the belly band, there'll be a tab at the bottom to sort of hold it in place. Once I get it cut to size, I will use my Aleene's tacky glue, a little strip on each side, and then I will adhere that down onto this middle piece. I have a small piece of scrap with the same pattern as this one, and so I'm going to go ahead and use that for the tab on the bottom. While I'm working on that, I want to mention that Sweet Pea Papers is having a giveaway. I will be sharing a digital kit as part of her giveaway, and if you'd like to participate in that, you can go to her Facebook page and post as many days in the month as you want to. And each post is equivalent to one entry. All of the information for that will be listed in my description box. And I believe I already mentioned this, but just in case, be sure to check out all the different collaborators in this collaboration. There's 25, and everybody's going to post at least one video a week, and some will be posting more than that. And so it'll be a lot of fun to hop around in this collaboration and see what everybody makes. I'm going to go ahead and use this napkin to decorate one of the middle pieces in this flip. Typically napkins have 2 layers, and I like to use 2 pieces of tape to separate the layers. Usually the first layer is quite easy to get off. Sometimes that second layer is more difficult to get off. So the tape is very helpful in making sure that you have success in doing that. So I put a piece of tape on each side of the napkin, and then I try to gently pull that apart, and you can see that this second layer was really tightly put together onto the decorative layer. So it's really important that you get that off. Otherwise, your napkin can peel off of your project if you leave that second layer on there. I'm using glue stick to adhere the napkin, and I'm doing it really randomly. I'm not trying to cover the whole time card. I just want to cover parts of the time card. And glue stick works really great with napkin. You can also use Mod Podge or decoupage, and I mean pretty much any glue, but I wouldn't use like an Aleene's tacky glue because it might be too thick and take too long to dry. While that napkin is drying, I like to just sort of ignore it and give it time to dry. I'm going to go ahead and cut a pocket for this left-hand side. And I'm using a ruler and my scoring tool again. And then that way I can see that mark and make a cut with my paper cutter. And just to ensure I give the napkin plenty of time to dry, not the napkin, but the glue, I'm going to go ahead and add a pocket to the right side. So I'm just flipping the napkin, kind of getting it out of the way. And I'm using see how that piece there has a already like pre-cut curve to it? I'm just cutting that right off, and I'm going to use that in the upper corner on this side. Hopefully I have given the napkin enough time to dry. I'm going to go ahead and start peeling it away. And again, it's not supposed to cover the whole time card. I sort of did like a random pattern with the glue stick. I'm using the ruler just to support it a little bit, just so I don't tear off more than I want to. I'll come back in and tear off any loose pieces, and then I'll grab a little bit of sandpaper. And because sometimes there's these little pieces, you can't really get them with your finger, but they're loose and I don't like to leave them on there. So I just go around the edge with some sandpaper and they come right off very quickly. Now I'm going to go ahead and ink some of the edges. I think I'm going to try to hit all of the edges with my brown ink. I'm using a vintage digital kit, so just to sort of go with that older look, I'm hitting it with some brown ink. Now I'm going to grab a die. I love this die, and I'm using it as a stencil, and so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this pattern to the time card around the napkin. I'm going to do the same thing here and there on the time cards, and then I'm also going to come in with some stencils and add those. Now I might end up covering them with embellishments, and that's okay, it doesn't matter. At least I'm getting the layers in. If I cover it, it's honestly no big deal, but if I decide not to cover it, at least there's a little bit of a pattern there. I'm trying to get more into layering things, and layering doesn't always mean paper on fabric. It can mean a layer of stenciling. In my digital kit, I've got some vintage photographs and postcards. They were original, but of course now they're copies of the original. But I've got a couple in the kit which I really like, and one of them is this Christmas tree. This is a black and white, and it's a Christmas tree with some gifts around it. So I'm adding that simply as a decorative piece. I'm also going to cut out these beautiful kids. They're just beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and use those also as a decorative piece. And I think it's going to end up being the cover of this flip. I've got another postcard here that I'm going to go ahead and cut out. I'm going to ink the edges, and then I'm going to use my little brush and ink a little further in just to give it a very old look. I was thinking of putting it in the upper right hand pocket, but I end up putting it in the lower left hand pocket. And you're going to notice in a few minutes here, or in just a few seconds, that I'm going to take my spatula, I'm going to put it in the pocket. Sometimes it helps stretch the paper. It doesn't tear it, but it helps stretch it a little bit. If you end up making pockets that are really tight, you can do that and it'll help stretch it out. I wasn't worried about it tearing it because my cardstock that I use is really, really thick, so I knew that it would be just fine. Now I'm just going to go ahead and prep some ephemera so it'll be ready for me to use when I decide where I want to use it. I'm going to go ahead and cut out also the rest of the postcards. I'll ink the edges, and I'm also going to ink the edges of this little candle that I am cutting out because I'm definitely going to be using that as an embellishment. I'd like to decide what I'm putting inside this little horizontal belly band, and I see that this small postcard actually fits in there. So I'm using that as a template to figure the width of whatever I want to put in there. And I've decided I'm going to go ahead and put this piece of paper in here. It's got, this is the digital kit, Vintage Christmas, and you can see there's a pattern on the front and the back, which is great. So that's what I'm going to put in the horizontal belly band, and somebody can use that however they would like to. And I am scoring it. You can see me doing that with my ruler. And I'm doing that so I can fold it and it'll fold nice and crisp. And this way it should fit in that belly band with no problem. I have a postcard in this other belly band, but I'd like to put a taller one in there as well, behind the short one. It'll help secure it so they don't move around as much if there's more than one in there, but also it just looks better if there's, you know, one that's taking up a little bit more space. The other one's just a little bit small. So I'm just cutting a piece of the digital kit, and I used my corner rounder, and now I'm adding some ink to the edges. And now I'm going to go ahead and embellish that a little bit further. I've decided to use one of these that has a little bit more like a yellowy vintage look to it, just because it goes better with this particular paper. So I'm going to cut that to size because it's too wide to fit the tag right now. And of course I'll take the white off the top and the bottom, and then I'll go ahead and adhere that to the tag. Then I think I'm going to put the candle in the center of that, and I think that's going to look kind of cool. I definitely feel like the candle looks better on this than the angels do, so that's definitely what I'm going with. And I end up really liking the way that this looks, and I think it's very cool, and then it looks good under the belly band as well. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do in the center. You know, that's where I have the napkin. I've done an upper pocket, I've done lower pockets, I've done belly bands, so I didn't want to do more of that. I've done a horizontal belly band, I've done vertical, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I actually ended up grabbing some cream colored lined paper. I'm going to go ahead and cut that in half and layer those. And then they can go right there over top the napkin. You'll be able to see the napkin above the paper and below the paper, and I will only glue the paper at the top. So if you lift the paper, you'll be able to see the napkin and the stenciling. You'll notice here that I am rounding the corners. I'm also going to ink the edges a little bit just to give it an aged look, and then I will go ahead and put a strip of glue at the top of each piece of paper, and then I'll glue those in place. I don't want the paper to be completely plain, so I grabbed a stencil that's got some numbers on it, and I'm going to use my ink and my brush, and I'm going to stencil the number 25. Now on the lower right, I am going to use my handy dandy die, and I'm going to use that as a stencil just to add a little more pattern to the page. And I used the brown around the outer edge. Then I'm going in towards the center with a little bit of red. I've got a pocket that's got nothing in it, so let's go ahead and create a tag for that. These are fairly simple tags because this is an accordion flip. You know, I want things to be somewhat flat, so I'm not embellishing with big heavy-duty 3D stuff. So at any rate, let's get back to the tag. It's got to be tall and thin because everything about this is tall and thin. So I cut a piece of the digital kit, which, as again I'll mention, was printed on a very thick cardstock. So it's very easy to use these as tags, and I don't even have to double layer them. I cut it, rounded the corners, and inked the edges with red ink. I'd like to use the angel on here, but I think she needs something behind her. So as you can see, I am cutting this piece from the kit, and it's got, I don't know, is that a kaleidoscope sort of a feel? I'm not sure. But at any rate, I want to use that behind the angel. I'm marking where I need to cut that piece so I can cut it to size so it fits properly.
Thinking about what's happened to me from July up till now, don't know where, don't know how. Lately I've come to realize that I can't see it in your eyes, so it's true. I'm so glad you feel it too. Nothing to hide, falling in love. To me it's perfectly clear, we're falling in love. It's true, this part of the year has something in store for us. We're falling in love. Summer ended, but we did not. We started something. This thing that we got grew stronger. Each day we're together.
I like the way that turned out, so I'm going to go ahead and stuff that in the pocket.
It's perfectly clear we're falling in love. It's true, this part of the year has something in store for us. We're falling in love.
Now I want to go ahead and add some embellishments. So I have this stamp in the digital kit. I'm using my decorative edge scissors to cut that out, because you know how stamps have, they don't have usually a perfectly straight edge. So I didn't want this to have a perfectly straight edge either. So I'm inking around the edges, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue that to the upper right hand corner. I think I'd like to do a little bit of layering here, nothing crazy, but I'm going to use a piece of this satin fabric underneath the stamp. I have a star here, and I'm going to add that to one of those sheets of paper. I made some clusters last year for the holidays, and I have some leftovers, which I'm really glad about. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one in the lower right hand corner. I am covering up some of my stenciling, but that's okay. I don't mind that I'm covering it up. I dug around in my stash and I had this candy cane already printed out. I think that's from one of my other Christmas kits, and I'm going to go ahead and add that to the pocket. I have an authentic stamp that I received on an envelope when I received a Christmas card. I like to save those if they have themes, and this one is a Christmas theme. So I'm tearing some of the envelope away, but I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to the top of this belly band. I tried to use a stamp on the horizontal belly band and it didn't come out right. So I'm going to just cover that up with a piece of the satin fabric that I'm using. And then I'll go ahead and put something on top of that as well. Actually, I decided I'd make a handmade ruffle. So I took a piece of scrap red fabric. It's the stuff I used for the hinges. And I'm using my glue gun and I'm going to create a ruffle. Once the ruffle is complete, I'm going to add a button to the center of it. I will attach the button using my gem tack, and I already took a little bit of sandpaper to the button. I like to rough it up, and that gives the adhesive something to grip to. I had added a floral die cut to the top of this page. It's in a Christmas plaid pattern, so I think it goes well. So I added a wooden, what do we call that? Snowflake. This is actually a wooden snowflake, and I added that to the center of that paper flower. I was going to add another authentic stamp, and when I put hot glue on it, it actually made the stamp turn black, which I thought was really weird. So they're made out of that receipt paper now, I guess, instead of real paper, which I don't think is great, because if we're using those in our projects years down the road, they're probably going to fade out. That's my thought anyway. I'm not sure if they will, but that's my thought, because I don't think that paper holds up for very long. It's the thermal paper. So anyway, moving on. I'm adding some green ribbon to the top above the cute girls, and then I'm adding some velvet ribbon over top of that. Somewhere along the line, I added a cute little hot cocoa cup right at the 25 there in the center. Don't know when I pop that in there. Sometimes my battery dies and I'm in the middle of something and I don't want to change it, and that's probably what happened. So in the center of this velvet piece, I'm going to add another button, and you can see I etched it up with my sandpaper there. Once I'm done with that, I think it looks like I'm ready to add some charms to the edges of some of the pages. So I have a bag of Christmas charms here. I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to pick some that I think I'd like to add to this little accordion flip. I do have a crocodile that I use, so I'm punching a hole in one of these, as you can see, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab 3 grommets real quick, and then I'm going to pop one of the grommets in that hole. And then I'm going to show you on the crocodile, because if you're new to this or new to having a crocodile, you need to notice that what I had just pointed out was it will show you that there's a top and there's a bottom. They call it a top and a base. And you want to make sure that you do that correctly, otherwise your grommet just gets squished, but it doesn't work properly. Now I'm adding a bulb pin and a couple of charms. And I'll add a charm, and then on the other charm, I'm going to put it on a O-ring and then add that to the bulb pin so they sort of cascade, so they're not like laying flat against each other.
All right, friends, I'm going to show you a flip through of our little time card. Well, I shouldn't say little, because it's really tall, but it's our time card accordion folder. We've got, you saw me put this together, so we've got some ribbon here, 2 layers of it, and a button, and right next to it we attached with a grommet some charms. We've got a mitten and a little sleigh. We have a nice vintage picture here, and then we've got a pocket down here. Well, before we get to the pocket, we have another grommet with some charms on it, and then we have a pocket with 2 vintage postcards. Now these are replicas, so they are not, they're from authentic, but they are themselves not authentic, as well as this photo. This is done in a very vintage style. You can tell that by the colors in the digital kit that I used, which is my vintage digital kit, and it is available on my Etsy shop. So we're going to flip this. Actually, let's just open it up all the way. We could flip it like this, but we're just going to open it up all the way so you can see it in full. So here we've got 2 pieces of paper, and we did a little stenciling on it. We have the number 25. We have some cocoa,
So there's some journaling space here. We have a napkin and some stenciling under here. Lots of details in this. Over here we have some more charms hanging and a bell. And we have an upper pocket. And you remember I put some fabric here and then this stamp. And then we've got this vintage picture. Again, this is a copy of the vintage picture of a Christmas tree with gifts. And some faux postcards that were real, but these ones aren't. This is all part of my digital kit. These postcards and the photograph, the stamp, this photograph, all of this pretty much is from the digital kit. So when we close that, we have a very tall belly band. It's hard to get the whole thing in the camera, but I'm going to try. Another vintage postcard. The parakeets are talking as we're looking through. And here's another tag that we made. Here's the time card exposed with some stenciling on it. The belly band, we did a little bit of ribbon here. And that ribbon actually is vintage. And a stamp from a Christmas card that was sent to me. So then we can go like this. And we have a very tall pocket. This can be added to. But what I did was, you remember I put this die cut here with a wooden snowflake button. And then we did a handmade ruffle. And let me cut this little string here. It doesn't bother me, but I'm just going to go ahead and trim it anyway. We got our button. The glue is still drying a little bit on that. We have our little tab here that holds everything in place. And then this is just a piece of my kit that can be, this can be added to, changed, altered, whatever. I'm going to slide it from the top. That just was easier for me. And I'm going to pull it down. And I'm going to tuck this part in here. That way it remains nice and stable. So now when we flip to the back, you can see the charms as we saw them from the front. And then we have a nice cluster. I think I made these clusters last year during the holiday season. And in our pocket, you can see we've got the exposed time card. And we have 2 tags. And now we are back to the front. So I'm going to stand it up. And there's the accordion. And as you probably remember, we used 3 time cards. And then I cut some sheets so that we could put the fabric in between so that we've got this flexibility here. And that's how we did it. So I hope you enjoyed this, you guys. I really, really enjoyed putting it together. It was a lot of fun for me. Please be sure to check out everybody else's videos in this wonderful collaboration. Thanks for watching. See you soon.